Professor Benjamin Freeman strode into the security checkpoint, the heavy blast doors grinding open to reveal the alien shuttle crouched on the tarmac outside. He steadied his nerves with a deep breath. This was it, his first contact as Earth's representative with a race that had long looked down on humanity's alleged primitive nature. Benjamin approached the leader, a willowy male named Cygnus. "Welcome to Earth." He extended a hand in the human gesture of greeting. "I'm Professor Freeman. It's an honor to have you join us." Cygnus cocked his head, assessing Benjamin with clinical detachment. "Your facilities are impressive for a Level 3 civilization." His multi-tonal voice dripped with thinly veiled condescension. "Though I fail to see how your species has risen so quickly. Lurian intelligence reports rate your biology as barely above savage." Benjamin clenched his jaw but held his diplomatic smile. "I think you'll find we're full of surprises." He turned, motioning for the students to follow. "Allow me to give you the grand tour. By the end, I suspect your opinion of humanity will have changed dramatically." As he led them into the gleaming halls of the Academy, Benjamin knew the future of Earth's galactic standing hung in the balance. The Lurians had to be convinced of humanity's worthiness as allies, or the consequences for his homeworld could be dire. As the Lurian students settled into their first week of classes at the Galactic Academy's Human Division, they quickly found themselves struggling to keep pace with the rigorous coursework. In Professor Liam Novak's advanced xenobiology class, Cygnus and his fellow Lurians pored over detailed diagrams of human anatomy, their silver eyes widening at the intricate network of organs, bones, and muscles that made up the deceptively resilient human form. "The human cardiovascular system is a marvel of efficiency," Professor Novak explained, laser pointer tracing the path of blood through the body, capable of sustaining intense physical exertion for extended periods. Cygnus glanced at his human classmates, who nodded along with the lecture, styluses flying across their sleek datapads. He clenched his teeth, determined to master this alien biology. In the Academy's sprawling gym complex, the Lurians faced an even greater challenge. Coach Ethan Reeves, a mountain of a man with bulging muscles and a chiseled jaw, barked orders as the students grunted through a punishing regimen of weightlifting and calisthenics. "You think this is hard?" Reeves shouted, pacing between the straining students. "Wait until you see what my advanced class can do." Cygnus watched in disbelief as a petite human female effortlessly bench-pressed a weight that would have crushed his slender frame. Shame burned in his chest, fueling a newfound purpose to push his own limits. But even as the Lurians immersed themselves in the wonders of human culture, dark shadows gathered on the horizon. Urgent messages from High Chancellor Zephyr filled their inboxes, warning of growing unrest on the Lurian homeworld. Cygnus exchanged uneasy glances with his fellow students. The thought of betraying their human hosts who had welcomed them with open arms filled him with a sickening dread. But could he turn his back on his own people, on the family and friends who waited anxiously for his return? As rumors of a potential Lurian attack on the Academy began to swirl, Professor Benjamin Freeman worked tirelessly to bridge the growing divide between the two species. He organized joint research projects and cultural exchange events, his unwavering optimism a beacon in the gathering darkness. But even Benjamin's diplomatic skills might not be enough to prevent the catastrophic conflict that loomed on the horizon. The Lurians had come to Earth as students and observers. Now they found themselves caught in a web of galactic politics and ancient prejudices, forced to choose between their hearts and their duty. The stakes had never been higher. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance. The simulation began, and Cygnus found himself pitted against a team led by Axel Novak, a human student with a reputation for quick thinking. As the negotiations unfolded, Cygnus watched in growing dismay as Axel's team outmaneuvered them at every turn. Axel's voice rang clear across the simulated negotiation chamber. "The Centauri Accord offers a fair distribution of resources while protecting the rights of all parties involved." He gestured to a holographic display, highlighting key points of his proposal. Just as Cygnus felt defeat looming, Professor Freeman's voice cut through the room. "Attention, delegates! We have a new development. A terrorist organization has threatened to destabilize the entire star system unless their demands are met." The room erupted in chaos, Cygnus locked eyes with Axel across the chamber, a moment of understanding passing between them. They would need to work together to overcome this new threat. Axel took charge, his voice rising above the din. We need to form a united front. Lurians, humans, everyone. We're stronger together. Cygnus swallowed his pride and joined Axel at the central podium. Together, they crafted a plan that addressed the terrorist threat while preserving the delicate balance they had negotiated earlier. As the simulation concluded, Professor Freeman announced the results. In an unprecedented display of cooperation, the combined human-Lurian team has not only neutralized the terrorist threat, but laid the groundwork for lasting peace in the region. Axel smiled, running a hand through his tousled hair. I studied Earth's great diplomats, people who faced seemingly insurmountable odds and found a way through. It's not about being the smartest or the strongest. It's about understanding people, finding common ground. Cygnus nodded slowly, a new respect for humans blossoming in his chest. He opened his mouth to respond, but was cut off by a commotion near the auditorium entrance. Professor Freeman stood there, face pale, clutching a datapad. He beckoned urgently to Axel and Cygnus. I need to speak with you both, immediately. As they hurried towards the professor, Cygnus couldn't shake the feeling that their real diplomatic test was just beginning. As they approached the moon, gasps echoed through the shuttle. The once pristine facility was a mess of twisted metal and ruptured biodomes. Toxic gases billowed from multiple breaches, obscuring large portions of the base. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. Cygnus stumbled, catching himself against a wall as alarms blared. A thunderous crack split the air, and before anyone could react, the ceiling collapsed. When the dust settled, Cygnus found himself trapped with the humans and his fellow Lurians in a small pocket of space. The air grew thin as they assessed their situation. We need to seal those ruptures and stabilize the atmosphere, Benjamin said, his calm voice a stark contrast to the chaos around them. Ezra, what resources do we have left? As the humans sprang into action, Cygnus watched in amazement. Each person seemed to instinctively know their role, working with a coordinated efficiency he'd never seen before. Look out! Helios cried, but there was no time to react. In a blur of motion, Coach Ethan launched himself skyward. His powerful frame seemed to defy gravity as he snatched the drone mid-flight, twisting to absorb the impact as he landed. The Lurians stared open-mouthed. Impossible, Vix whispered. As they worked to stabilize the atmosphere, Arya, a young engineering student, suddenly froze. Professor, she called, her voice tight with urgency. The radiation levels are spiking. We have minutes before the entire moon is contaminated. A heavy silence fell over the group. Then Arya's eyes lit up. The fusion reactor, she said. We could create a contained singularity to absorb the radiation. What followed was a frantic race against time. Humans and Lurians worked side by side, recalibrating systems and rerouting power. Twice they narrowly averted meltdowns that would have vaporized them instantly. Then with a soft hum, the singularity stabilized. Radiation levels plummeted as the anomaly began to absorb the deadly energy. As they boarded the shuttle for the return journey, Cygnus felt a profound shift within himself. He glanced at his fellow Lurians, seeing his own awe reflected in their silver eyes. I've never seen such dedication, Professor Freeman remarked, watching Cygnus meticulously debug a line of code. The Lurian's silver eyes reflected the flickering screen, his fingers a blur over the haptic interface. In the gym, Coach Reeves barked orders as the Lurians strained against increasingly heavy weights. More! He shouted, his voice echoing off the metal equipment. You're barely scratching the surface of your potential. Even Cygnus found himself drawn into the orbit of human companionship. He and Benjamin walked the campus grounds, engaged in deep discussions about the nature of interspecies cooperation. Cygnus nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I never imagined I could feel so at home here. You will return to Luria immediately, he snarled. Your minds have been poisoned by human influence. This farce ends now. Cygnus exchanged worried glances with Vix and Helios. They knew they couldn't abandon their newfound home and friends. Lurians, stay! Lurians, stay! The chant grew louder as more students joined the rally. The crowd roared its approval, but the celebration was cut short by a frantic transmission from the Academy's long-range sensors. Multiple Lurian warships detected at the edge of the solar system, a technician reported, his face pale. They're on an intercept course with Earth. Arya's experimental craft gleamed in the dim light, its sleek lines hinting at incredible speed. She's not pretty, Arya said, patting the hull affectionately, but she'll outrun anything Zephyr can throw at us. With Axel at the helm and Ethan manning the makeshift weapon systems, the humans and Lurians piled into the cramped cockpit. The launch bay doors slid open, revealing a star-studded expanse of space. Hold on to something, Axel grinned, his hands dancing over the controls. This might get a little bumpy. As they rocketed away from the only home they'd ever known, Cygnus felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. He glanced at his human friends, their faces set with dedication, and knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The ship's sensors blared a warning. "Multiple bogeys on our 6, Ethan called out, his muscular frame hunched over the weapons console. "Looks like Zephyr's not letting us go without a fight." Fight! Axel's hands flew over the controls, the prototype ship responding with impossible agility. Axel's heart made. We don't need forever, just long enough to make the jump. The ship shuddered as a glancing blow from a Lurian cruiser grazed their shields. Alarms blared, red warning lights bathing the cockpit in an eerie glow. "Arya, we need more power to the engines," Axel shouted over the din. "Just do it." The ship lurched forward, G-forces pressing them into their seats. The pursuing Lurian ships fell back, their energy weapons splashing harmlessly against the rapidly expanding void between them. Axel nodded, his eyes never leaving the flickering readouts. "Initiating jump in 3, 2, 1. Reality twisted. For a heartbeat, the universe seemed to fold in on itself. Then, with a flash of searing light, they emerged in an unfamiliar star system. "Status report," Benjamin called out, his normally calm voice tinged with urgency. Arya's fingers flew over her console. "Hull integrity at 62%, shields down, but we're alive." Cygnus sagged in his seat, relief washing over him. Then he noticed Vix, staring out the viewport with haunted eyes. "Vix, what is it?" "My family," Vix whispered. "What will happen to them now?" A long pause followed. When Ren's voice returned, it was permeated with suspicion. "Lurians? You brought Lurians here? Are you out of your mind, Freeman?" As they approached the outpost, a sprawling complex of interconnected modules clinging to a barren asteroid, Axel turned to the others. "Well, gang," he said with a wry smile, "welcome to our new home. Let's hope the hospitality improves." The docking sequence completed with a metallic clang. As the airlock cycled, Cygnus felt a mix of trepidation and hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, humans and Lurians united against a common threat. The airlock hissed open, revealing a squad of heavily armed security personnel, led by a grizzled man with steel-gray hair and a perpetual scowl. Commander Marcus Wren. Benjamin stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture. "Commander, I assure you we—" Wren's face hardened. "Looks like your friends followed you here after all." Wren's hand tightened on his weapon. "And I should believe you, because—" Wren's expression resolute as he weighed his options. Finally, he nodded. "All right, I'm not saying I trust you, but we've got bigger problems right now. Follow me to the command center. We need to coordinate a response." As they hurried through the station's corridors, Axel fell into step beside Benjamin. "What's our play here, Prof? We can't fight both Zephyr and the Syndicate." Benjamin's eyes gleamed with purpose. "We don't have to. If we can prove the Syndicate threat to Zephyr, we might just turn an enemy into an ally." The command center bustled with activity as they entered. Wren barked orders, bringing weapons online and coordinating evasive maneuvers. He turned to the newcomers. "You wanted a chance to prove yourselves? Now's the time. We need a plan, and we need it fast." "They'll never listen," Vix interrupted. "Not without proof. And maybe even sabotage their superweapon in the process," Axel added, a grin spreading across his face. Not if we use my prototype's stealth capabilities, Arya countered. With a few modifications, we can slip past their sensors undetected. Benjamin turned to Ren. Commander, if you can buy us some time with the Lurian fleet, we can assemble a strike team and make for the Craxus Nebula. Ren hesitated, then nodded curtly. I hope you know what you're doing, Freeman, because if this goes sideways, we're all dead. As alarms blared and the station shuddered under Lurian bombardment, the unlikely allies sprang into action. Arya and Helios rushed to modify her prototype ship, while Axel and Cygnus began assembling a coalition strike force from the station's security personnel and their own companions. The prototype ship's engines hummed to life as the strike team made final preparations. Axel's voice crackled over the comm system. All hands, prepare for immediate departure. Next stop, the Craxus Nebula in the heart of Syndicate territory. Operations, coordinates locked for the Craxus Nebula. Arya's modifications hummed to life, enveloping the ship in a cloak of sensor-scattering energy. As they accelerated towards the jump point, Ethan kept his eyes glued to the tactical display. No pursuit detected. Looks like Ren's distraction worked. As they approached, the nebula parted to reveal a massive shipyard. Partially completed vessels hung in skeletal frames, while swarms of worker drones flitted between them. I'm picking up unusual energy readings, Arya said, frowning at her console. It could be the superweapon. Axel guided their ship towards a less populated section of the shipyard. We need to get aboard and gather that evidence. Any volunteers for a boarding party? Cygnus stood, his silver eyes gleaming with persistence. I'll go. My Lurian biology might help us bypass some security measures. I'm with you, Ethan said, checking his weapon. We'll need muscle if things go sideways. Benjamin's face hardened. This changes everything. We need to warn the Syndicate about Zephyr's arrival. It might be our only chance to turn enemies into allies. The prototype ship shuddered as it docked with the Syndicate base. Alarms blared, drowning out the sound of boots pounding on metal decks. Cygnus, Ethan, and Axel sprinted down the corridor, weapons at the ready. We need to get to the command center, Cygnus shouted over the din. It's our only chance to warn them about Zephyr. They rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with a squad of Syndicate guards. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. Then chaos erupted. Ethan dove for cover, returning fire as he rolled. Cygnus used her Lurian agility to close the distance, disarming one guard with a swift strike. Axel's precision shots found their marks, disabling weapons and forcing the remaining guards to retreat. This way! Arya's voice crackled through their comms. I've hacked into their security systems. The command center is 2 levels up. They fought their way through the base, the sounds of battle growing louder. Through viewports, they glimpsed Zephyr's warship exchanging fire with Syndicate defenses. The entire structure shook with each impact. We're under attack! A Syndicate commander whirled to face the intruders, his hand reaching for his weapon. Warn us? The commander's eyes narrowed. You led him straight to us. No, Axel interjected. We uncovered your plans, yes. But Zephyr's after all of us now. We need to work together if we want to survive this. Sir, a technician called out, our outer defenses are failing. We can't hold out much longer. A truce, Benjamin's voice came through their comms. Combined, our forces might stand a chance against Zephyr. And after that, we have a proposal that could change everything. Benjamin stepped forward, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. We've all suffered losses today, but from this chaos, we have an opportunity to forge something new, something that could prevent such conflicts in the future. This is madness, a Syndicate leader scoffed. Our differences are too great. The debate raged for hours. Arguments flared and tempers frayed. But slowly, painfully, a consensus began to form. In the weeks that followed, word of the coalition spread across the galaxy. On Earth's campus, human and alien students gathered to mourn their losses and celebrate their hard-won unity. Memorials sprang up alongside new cultural centers, each a testament to the power of diversity. Meanwhile, Sergeant Hawkins, his body still bearing the scars of Zephyr's betrayal, took on a new mission. he began assembling a multi-species peacekeeping force, drawing on veterans from all sides of the recent conflicts. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges, both seen and unseen. But for now, a new chapter in galactic history had begun. The Galactic Coalition's early days were marked by a flurry of activity. On Earth's campus, now a hub of interstellar diplomacy, representatives from a dozen species hurried through gleaming corridors. Holograms flickered with real-time translations as voices from across the galaxy debated trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. Amidst this bustle, a striking Tauran diplomat glided through the crowd. Ambassador Vecra's iridescent scales shimmered as she nodded graciously to passing dignitaries. Her eyes, however, held a cold calculation at odds with her warm demeanor. In a secure conference room, Sergeant Hawkins briefed his multi-species peacekeeping force. "We've received reports of supply thefts along the Orion trade route," he said, his scarred face grim. "Our job is to investigate and—" Inside Central Command, tension crackled. Ambassador Vecra stood at the center, her voice low and urgent. "Incontrovertible evidence. I'm sorry, but we can no longer ignore the facts." Later, in a quiet corner of the research wing, Cygnus confided her suspicions to Arya. "Vecra's evidence, it's almost too convenient." Arya nodded, her fingers flying over holographic interfaces. "I'll run some deep scan analysis on the footage. If there's any tampering, we'll find it." Cygnus's eyes widened. "We need to tell Benjamin and Axel, now." The four gathered in Benjamin's office, voices low as they discussed their findings. "If Vecra is Ryclorn, the entire coalition could be compromised," Axel said, running a hand through his hair. As they finalized their plans, none of them noticed the small cleaning drone in the corner, its sensors recording every word. In a hidden Ryclorn base, Vecra received the drone's transmission. Her form rippled, scales melting away to reveal mottled gray skin. She activated a comlink. "Initiate Phase 2. Our cover is blown." As the battle raged, Arya's voice crackled over the comm system. "The fusion reactor, it's been compromised." In the reactor control room, Arya and a team of engineers fought to regain control of the surging plasma core. Sweat beaded on her forehead as her fingers danced across emergency override panels. "Rerouting coolant flow," she muttered. Come on, come on." Warning klaxons wailed as the reactor temperature climbed higher. A Zaloxian engineer called out, "Containment field at 37% and falling." Arya's mind raced. "We need to create a resonance cascade to disrupt the chain reaction. Tylax, realign the magnetic bottling array. Soren, prepare to dump the emergency deuterium reserves on my mark." As they worked feverishly to avert disaster, the battle in the council chambers reached its climax. Vecra, her true Rycloran form revealed, cornered Axel and Cygnus. "You humans," she spat, her body rippling with impossibly strong rage. "You had no right to meddle in galactic affairs. The Rycloran were destined to rule, and we will see your pathetic coalition burn." She lashed out, her limbs elongating into razor-sharp blades. Axel and Cygnus moved in perfect synchronization, years of shared training evident in their fluid motions. They ducked and weaved, narrowly avoiding Vecra's attacks. Cygnus's Lurian reflexes allowed her to slip past Vecra's guard, landing a series of precise strikes. Axel capitalized on the opening, using a judo throw to send Vecra crashing into a control panel. Sparks flew as Vecra's body contorted, squeezing through the damaged panel. Her voice echoed as she disappeared into the station's infrastructure. "This isn't over. The masters of the Rycloran Syndicate will reduce your coalition to ashes." As the last of the shapeshifters were subdued, an eerie quiet fell over the chamber. The remaining coalition leaders surveyed the damage, their faces a mix of shock and purpose. As the coalition regrouped and prepared for the challenges ahead, one thing became clear. The Rycloran Syndicate had made a grave miscalculation. Far from destroying the Alliance, their attack had only strengthened its purpose. Purpose had only strengthened its persistence. In a secure conference room deep within the coalition headquarters, Axel Novak leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "We can't just wait for the next attack. We need to take the fight to them." Benjamin Freeman nodded grimly. What do you propose? Axel's eyes gleamed with a mix of drive and apprehension. A covert strike team. We infiltrate their fortress in the Tari Nebula and cut off the head of the snake. The room fell silent as the gravity of the suggestion sank in. Cygnus, her silver eyes narrowed in thought, was the first to speak. It's risky, but it might be our only chance. Over the next hours, they assembled their team. Krisk, a grizzled Tauran mercenary, provided tactical expertise. Zoran, an alien engineering prodigy, joined for her technical skills. Drex, a human marine commando, rounded out the combat capabilities. With Arya's tech genius and Axel's strategic mind, they formed a formidable unit. Under the cover of night, they boarded a stealth ship equipped with Arya's latest cloaking technology. As they slipped past the Ryclorn's outer defenses, tension crackled through the air. Drex took point, his rifle spitting precision fire. "Contact left," he barked, diving for cover. Zoran worked feverishly, her alien appendages interfacing directly with the fortress's systems. "I've got schematics," she called out, 3 levels down to the command center. They fought their way through twisting passageways, the air thick with ozone and the screech of energy weapons. Arya's makeshift EMP grenades proved invaluable, temporarily shorting out the cyborg troops in brilliant flashes of blue-white light. Suddenly, a barrage of fire pinned Cygnus behind a crumbling barricade. Her silver eyes widened as she saw the wave of Ryclorn closing in. "I've got this," Krisk growled. The Tauran mercenary hefted a massive weapon, its power cells humming ominously. "Go!" The corridor lit up with devastating firepower as Krisk unleashed hell. Ryclorn troops disintegrated in the onslaught, but return fire found its mark. As Cygnus reached safety, she turned to see Krisk slumped against the wall, his scales slick with blood. "Complete the mission," he rasped, his eyes already dimming. They pressed on, grief and dedication fueling their advance. Drex led them through a dizzying zero-G assault on the command center. Axel's diplomatic skills proved equally lethal as he outmaneuvered the Ryclorn's supreme overlord in a brief but brutal confrontation. With the bridge secure, the captured overlord sneered at them. "You're too late. Our agents are already in place across your precious coalition. Soon, unstable singularities will devour entire star systems." Arya's face paled. "That's based on my research. They've weaponized it." "We need to warn the coalition," Axel said urgently. "How long do we have?" They fought their way back to the stealth ship, Ryclorn ambushes dogging their every step. As a massive armada closed in, Drex made a fateful decision. "Get clear," he ordered, sealing himself in the ship. "I'll buy you time." Before they could protest, Drex detonated the stealth ship in a blinding explosion that consumed the pursuing Ryclorn fleet. Racing back to Earth, the team knew the true battle was just beginning. As they landed, Benjamin Freeman was already mobilizing coalition forces for a desperate search across member worlds. In her lab, Arya worked with feverish intensity, Zoran at her side. Holographic models of swirling cosmic forces filled the air as they modified defensive nanotech. "If we can contain the singularities long enough," Arya muttered, her eyes never leaving her work, "we might have a chance." Outside, the sky began to pulse with ominous energy. The race against cosmic annihilation had begun. The sky pulsed with ominous energy as Arya's fingers flew across holographic displays. Zoran's alien appendages interfaced directly with the lab's systems, their minds racing against an invisible clock. Arya nodded, not looking up from her work. "We need to push it higher. The singularities are becoming more unstable by the minute." "Bad," Benjamin replied. "It's consuming everything in its path. We have less than a week before the entire system is gone." Zoran's appendages quivered. "Our nanotech isn't ready for deployment. We need more time." "Time we don't have," Arya said, her mind already racing through possibilities. She turned to Benjamin. "We need to miniaturize the containment tech for fighter deployment. It's our only shot." Benjamin nodded. "Do it! I'll mobilize every squadron we've got." "The Goros," Cygnus said simply. Cygnus shook her head. "They're real, and if anyone can crack the singularity problem, it's them." Arya exchanged a look with Benjamin. "It's risky," she said. The Goros are unpredictable at best. Do we have a choice? Cygnus countered. Benjamin's teeth clenched. Assemble a delegation. Axel will lead it. Hours later, Axel's team approached the Goros enclave. The massive structure defied conventional architecture, its twisting spires and impossible angles seeming to warp reality itself. They navigated a labyrinth of shifting corridors, solving mind-bending puzzles that tested the limits of human cognition. Finally, they stood before the Goros elders, their cybernetic bodies pulsing with otherworldly energy. Axel stepped forward, his voice steady as he outlined the crisis. The Goros listened in eerie silence, their augmented minds processing at speeds beyond human comprehension. Mere minutes later, one of the elders spoke. Its voice was a dissonant blend of organic and synthetic tones. We have your solution. The price is access to Earth's virtual reality archives. Axel's stomach clenched. He knew the value of what they were asking and the danger of giving it away. But with the Corin singularity growing by the second, there was no time for negotiation. The space around Corin erupted into chaos. Coalition fighters wove intricate patterns through the maelstrom, their singularity disruptors leaving trails of shimmering nanoparticles in their wake. Axel's voice crackled over the comm. We're not getting close enough. The gravitational shear is tearing our fighters apart. Cygnus's Lurian reflexes kicked in as she threaded her fighter through a hail of Rycloran fire. Follow my lead, she called to Axel. We'll synchronize our attack vectors. Their fighters moved in perfect tandem, pushing the limits of what was physically possible. As they reached the optimal firing position, Cygnus felt a moment of perfect clarity. Now! She shouted. Cheers erupted across the comm channels, but Axel's voice cut through the celebration. This was just the first, he reminded them. We've got a long fight ahead. Arya's voice came through, tense but focused. All units regroup and prepare for the next deployment. We've won the battle, but the war is just getting started. Cygnus's silver eyes narrowed as she studied the incoming data. That's not possible. Our intel showed Taurius 4 was clear. It's worse than that, Axel said, his face grim on the vid screen. We've got confirmation of Goros involvement. A splinter faction has turned. We need to neutralize that singularity now, Axel ordered, already moving towards a specialized craft. I'm taking a team in. The insertion ship bucked and shuddered as Axel piloted it through the treacherous gravitational eddies. Warning klaxons shrieked as the hull strained against forces it was never meant to endure. Axel's eyebrows furrowed as he pushed the craft to its limits, threading an impossible needle through the chaos. Deploying drones? Now! A swarm of shielding drones launched from the ship's bay, their nanofluid emitters glowing with otherworldly energy. As they formed a multi-layered barrier around the singularity, Axel's ship lurched violently. We're losing containment. Arya's voice was tense over the comms. Get out of there! With a final burst of thrust, Axel's crippled craft cleared the singularity's event horizon. Behind them, the drone's shielding flared to life, temporarily halting the cosmic collapse. Aboard the Coalition flagship, Axel reunited with Cygnus and Hawkins. His eyes blazed with willpower as he outlined his audacious plan. We build our own singularity, he said, his voice low and intense. One powerful enough to disrupt every Rycloran device simultaneously. Hawkins let out a low whistle. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical. And the risk? Cygnus asked, her silver eyes locked on Axel's. Despite the stakes, the coalition leaders unanimously agreed. There was no other choice. Construction of the titanic artificial singularity projector began immediately. Arya and Zoran worked alongside Goros engineers, pushing the boundaries of known science. The neutron star's corona blazed behind them, a constant reminder of the cosmic forces they sought to harness. Alarms blared as sensors detected a massive Rycloran assault force. Cygnus's fighters screamed out of the launch bay, leading a squadron of Tauran and Lurian pilots in a desperate defensive stand. In the heart of the projector, Axel's hands flew across the controls. Sweat beaded on his brow as he made final adjustments to the hyperdimensional calculations. A massive explosion rocked the station. Hull breach in Section 7, Zorn reported, her voice tense. We're losing containment. Axel's finger hovered over the activation switch. He took a deep breath, knowing that everything hinged on this moment. The projector hummed to life, reality itself seeming to bend around it. A vortex of unimaginable power erupted from the device, reaching across thousands of light years in an instant. Axel watched in awe as the Coalition's singularity connected with every Rycloran device, pulling them apart like cosmic thread through a needle. The threat that had loomed over countless worlds vanished in a display of hyperdimensional might. The war was just the beginning. The euphoria of victory faded quickly as Axel and his team turned their attention to the remnants of the Rycloran Syndicate. Aboard the Coalition flagship, Axel stood before a holographic star map, his eyes scanning the countless systems where the enemy could be hiding. Their stealth ships sliced through the void, weaving between deadly minefields that protected the Rycloran's final stronghold. As they approached the planetoid's surface, Axel's voice crackled over the comm. Remember, we're here to capture, not kill. The overlords need to answer for their crimes. The team infiltrated the bunker complex with practiced efficiency, disabling security systems and neutralizing guards. But as they penetrated deeper, an unsettling quiet descended. A chilling laugh echoed through the corridor. The supreme overlord of the Rycloran stepped into view, his scaled skin glistening under the harsh lights. "Welcome, humans," he hissed, mandibles clicking in cruel amusement. "I must thank you for delivering yourselves so conveniently to your doom." The Rycloran leader cut him off with a dismissive wave. "You fool! Did you think I wouldn't have contingencies?" His eyes gleamed with malice. "Allow me to introduce my new allies." The Overlord's mandibles spread in a grotesque approximation of a smile. Outcasts are so easily swayed with promises of power and revenge. Without warning, the traitorous Goros began overloading nearby power conduits. Axel grabbed Cygnus and dove for cover as cascading plasma eruptions tore through the corridor. They rolled to their feet, sprinting through the chaos as the complex began to tear itself apart. In another section of the bunker, Sergeant Hawkins and his alien Marines found themselves locked in brutal close quarters combat with the Overlord's elite cyborg shock troops. The air filled with the acrid smell of ozone and spilled blood as energy weapons clashed against nanoblade augments. A Rycloran soldier hefted a canister, its contents glowing in sickly green. "Behold the fruits of our research into your pathetic human genome." The canister burst, releasing a cloud of mutating viral agents. Hawkins watched in horror as one of his Tauran comrades began to dissolve, flesh sloughing off in liquid rivulets. "Arya," Hawkins shouted into his comm. "We need emergency medical protocols now." Arya's voice came through, tense but focused. "Deploying nanotech countermeasures. Hold on." Meanwhile, Axel and Cygnus raced through the disintegrating complex, guided by the Lurian woman's intimate knowledge of Rycloran structural design. "He's going to vent the atmosphere," Cygnus said, her silver eyes wide. "We need to reach the reactor core." They sprinted through maintenance tunnels, narrowly avoiding gouts of superheated plasma and collapsing bulkheads. Finally, they reached the antimatter reactor, its containment field already fluctuating dangerously. Axel's fingers flew across the control panel, initiating an overload sequence. This should take care of their escape plans. A hail of energy bolts forced them to take cover. Rycloran hunter squads had found them, intent on reactivating the atmospheric vents. Cygnus returned fire, her precision shots dropping enemies with ruthless efficiency. He hesitated for a split second before nodding and racing to finish the sabotage. Cygnus found herself slowly overwhelmed by the relentless Rycloran assault. Just as her position was about to be overrun, the far wall exploded inward. Arya stood framed in the breach, flanked by towering Tauran battlemechs. "Need a hand?" she called out, her smile fierce as her forces tore into the Rycloran ranks. The last thing they saw was Arya's determined face as she slammed her palm on the emergency bulkhead controls. Then darkness engulfed them as the antimatter detonation consumed the Rycloran base. The cyclone tunnel shot into deep space, tumbling end over end. As it stabilized, Axel and Cygnus found themselves face to face with the Supreme Overlord himself, who had apparently chosen the same escape route. The Overlord's mandibles clicked in rage. "You've destroyed everything I've built, but I'll see you dead before this is over." Cosmic energies from the Colis Nebula began to engulf the tumbling debris field that was now their makeshift arena. The Overlord's arm transformed, nanoblades extending from his fingertips as he lunged at Axel. Steel clashed against monomolecular edges as Axel parried the assault with his combat knife. They grappled in the confined space, each seeking a fatal opening. Axel roared in fury, redoubling his attack. The nebula's energies crackled around them, warping gravity and distorting their perceptions. Each movement felt like fighting through molasses one moment, then weightless the next. The Overlord pressed his advantage, his augmented strength and reflexes pushing Axel to his limits. Nanoblades sliced through Axel's armor, drawing lines of crimson across his chest and arms. Backed against the edge of their tumbling refuge, Axel felt the cosmic winds of the nebula tugging at him. The Overlord's eyes gleamed with triumph as he moved in for the kill. "Your species was always destined for extinction," the Rycloran leader hissed. "I'm merely accelerating the process." "Move!" In that fleeting instant, Axel saw his chance. He twisted, using the erratic gravitational fluctuations to his advantage. The Overlord's strike went wide, and Axel seized the alien's arm, redirecting its momentum. With a sickening crack, the Rycloran leader was hurled into the cosmic maelstrom. As quickly as it began, the battle was over. Axel slumped against the twisted metal, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The nebula's energies swirled around him, bathing the debris field in an otherworldly glow. "Cygnus," he croaked, crawling towards his fallen comrade. Her silver blood glittered in the cosmic light as he checked her vitals. Still breathing, but barely. Axel activated his emergency beacon, praying the Coalition's rescue teams would reach them in time. As the adrenaline faded, the full weight of their ordeal settled upon him. They had won, but at what cost? He cradled Cygnus's unconscious form, his mind replaying the faces of those who had sacrificed everything to bring down the Syndicate. The Tauran soldier dissolved by the bioweapon, Arya's determined visage as she sealed them in the escape tunnel. Countless others whose names he would never know. A flicker of movement caught his eye. Through the nebula's shifting curtain, he spotted the distinctive silhouette of a Coalition rescue ship. Relief washed over him as tractor beams locked onto their refuge. Weeks later, Axel stood before a sea of faces on Earth, the epicenter of humanity's first contact with alien life. The crowd's jubilant energy was palpable, a stark contrast to the somber mood inside Coalition headquarters. While we celebrate this victory, Benjamin Freeman's hologram flickered before the assembled leaders. We cannot ignore the threats that remain. Our long-range scans have detected pockets of fanatical resistance on the galactic fringe. Arya shook her head, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with almost unchecked frustration. More violence will only breed more extremists. We need to target the root of their indoctrination. The debate raged on, neither side willing to concede. Axel watched the proceedings with growing unease until a familiar voice cut through the din. "You're both right," Cygnus said, her silver eyes scanning the room. "And you're both wrong." All eyes turned to the Lurian woman as she activated a holographic display. "I've been analyzing Rycloran cultural data. Their entire society is built on conflict. Every act of aggression against them only reinforces their beliefs." She manipulated the display, revealing complex sociological models. "To truly defeat them, we need to do the unthinkable. We need to show them compassion." A stunned silence fell over the room. Axel felt a glimmer of hope as he saw the first seeds of understanding take root in the eyes of the Coalition's leaders. As his message spread across the stars, Axel could only hope it would be enough to turn the tide. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since the war began, he dared to believe that a lasting peace might truly be possible. They raced through the bustling corridors, the air thick with tension. As they entered the war room, Benjamin Freeman's hologram flickered to life, his face grim. Freeman's hologram expanded, revealing grotesque bioorganic constructs that defied description. Bioengineered weapons, Unlike anything we've encountered, our conventional arms are ineffective. Arya's bioluminescent skin pulsed with agitation. There has to be a weakness. Everything has a weak point. Hours bled into days as they scoured ancient texts and data crystals. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by stims and raw desperation. And then, buried in a corrupted file, they found it. It's not just invasion, Cygnus breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. It's genocide. Look. The plan crystallized with brutal simplicity. A strike team, led by Sergeant Hawkins, would infiltrate the Valathi command ship. Axel watched as the grizzled veteran prepped his team, each face a mask of stubborn persistence. "We're in!" Hawkins's voice crackled over the comm. "Deploying the payload now!" For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, like a wave of divine retribution, the nanovirus tore through the Valathi fleet. Massive bioships writhed in silent agony, their symbiotic systems collapsing. "Thrax's Prime!" Cygnus gasped. "He's going to—" Axel was already moving. "We need to evacuate, now!" What followed was a nightmare of logistics and heartbreak. Transports strained to capacity, leaving millions behind. Axel stood on the bridge of the last evacuation ship, watching the dreadnought's shadow engulf the planet. "We're out of time," he said, his voice hollow. "Do it," Axel commanded, grasping at this final thread of hope. Titanic structures loomed in the cosmic void, locked in eternal conflict. Energies beyond mortal understanding crackled and surged. Axel's mind reeled, unable to process the sheer scale of what he was witnessing. As Axel stared into the unfathomable depths of this new frontier, he knew their war had only just begun. Before Axel could respond, beings of pure light coalesced around them. Their forms shifted and flowed, defying mortal comprehension. A voice, or perhaps 1,000 voices in unison, resonated directly in their minds. The Aranathi's message continued, unveiling a cosmic horror set in motion by humanity's unintended intrusion. Extermination swarms were already en route, heralding total entropic oblivion. Arya's face contorted with concentration as she established a tenuous quantum link to her colleagues in real space. "We need a Planck-scale resonator array," she explained, her voice strained. "It's our only chance to unmake these swarms before they manifest." What followed was a desperate race against cosmic annihilation. Axel, Cygnus, and Arya split up, each venturing to separate Aranathi biospheres. They battled transdimensional ion storms, their bodies racked with energies no human was meant to endure. On a nameless hypercontinuum, Sergeant Hawkins and Drex made their final stand. "It's been an honor," Hawkins growled, locking eyes with Axel through a quantum interface. Then, without hesitation, they plunged into the resonator's cosmic accretion matrix. The universe itself seemed to scream as their sacrifice ruptured the Unmaker's swarm at a subatomic level. Yet for every victory, new horrors emerged. The Unmaker's core breached the dimensional barrier, birthing fresh legions of destruction. Reality itself convulsed. A blinding tsunami of energy engulfed everything. Axel grabbed Cygnus's hand as they leapt through a final dimensional rift, the world dissolving around them. Axel's vision blurred as he plummeted through the atmosphere, the familiar blue orb of Earth rushing up to meet him. Beside him, Cygnus's silver eyes widened in shock as the sky above them tore open, disgorging a nightmarish fleet of Valathi warships. "Brace for impact!" Axel shouted, activating his emergency grav chute mere seconds before they slammed into the Galactic Academy's quad. Pain lanced through his body as he rolled, coming to a stop against a crumpled holodisplay. Cygnus was already on her feet, her Lurian reflexes kicking in. "Axel, look!" The ground trembled as gargantuan pulse fusion cannons erupted from hidden silos across the campus. Benjamin Freeman's voice crackled over the emergency comms. "This is not a drill. All non-combat personnel evacuate to sub-levels immediately. We are at Code Obsidian." Chaos erupted as students and faculty scrambled for safety. Axel spotted Freeman coordinating the evacuation of alien exchange students, his face a mask of unwavering willpower. "Arya, what's our status?" Axel barked into his comm unit. Her voice came through, strained but focused. I've established quantum links with our allies. Goros and Toran fleets are inbound. But Axel, we're outnumbered. The Valathi brought everything. Incoming, Cygnus shouted, tackling Axel to the ground as a swarm of insectoid constructs descended on their position. The render swarms moved with terrifying efficiency, their microscopic blades stripping away matter at the molecular level. Axel nodded, understanding immediately. Arya, are you getting this? Already on it, she replied. I'm headed for the Quantum Bay now. Get that oversized squid in position, and I'll do the rest. As they sprinted for the hangar bays, Axel's mind raced. The plan was insane, a risky move with a razor-thin margin for error. But as he watched another coalition cruiser erupt into flames, he knew it was their only shot. All right, people, he addressed the ragtag group of pilots assembling before him. We've got one chance to save Earth. Let's make it count. The squadron launched, their nimble fighters weaving through the chaos of orbital combat. Axel's hands tightened on the controls as he led the formation towards Kraxus's flagship, every fiber of his being focused on the task ahead. Firing solution locked, Cygnus called out from the co-pilot's seat. Energy lances primed and ready. Axel took a deep breath, steeling himself for what came next. All units, execute attack pattern Omega. Let's go fishing. As they neared the polar facility, Axel's comm crackled to life. Arya's voice came through, tense but triumphant. Quantum matrix is aligned. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The world erupted in blinding light as the facility's entire reactor output refracted through the dimensional rift. An infinite cascade of energy lashed out, striking Kraxus's ship from every conceivable angle of existence simultaneously. The Valathi flagship convulsed, its bioengineered form unable to withstand the multidimensional assault. Axel watched in awe as the massive vessel began to disintegrate, reduced to its component atoms by the relentless barrage. Now, Cygnus, he shouted. With surgical precision, she transmitted the reprogrammed nanite instructions. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across Earth's orbit, Valathi ships imploded, collapsing in on themselves as their own technology turned against them. As the last echoes of battle faded, a ragged cheer went up from the surviving coalition forces. But Axel's relief was short-lived. The ground beneath them shuddered ominously, a stark reminder of the price of their victory. Axel, Arya's voice came through, heavy with concern. We've got a problem. The energy expenditure, it's destabilized the planet's core. We're looking at worldwide geological events, and our infrastructure is already on the brink. Cygnus spoke up, her voice quiet but resolute. The rift, if we can stabilize it, find a way through. Axel nodded, understanding the immensity of what she was proposing. An exodus, not just of humanity, but of every surviving species on Earth. A journey into the unknown depths of transdimensional space. Freeman took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. I have a proposal. It's extreme, but it may be our only hope for long-term survival. As Freeman outlined his plan to evacuate Earth through the transdimensional rift, Axel watched the faces around him contort with shock, disbelief, and in some cases, outrage. Abandon Earth? You can't be serious, General Hawthorne thundered, smacking his palm on the table. This is our home, damn it. We'll fight for it until the last breath. As Axel spoke, he could see the shift in the room. The anger gave way to reluctant understanding, then to a spark of hope. I have a solution, she announced, her eyes bright with excitement. A compression matrix that can digitize entire cities, allowing us to beam them through the rift. As Samantha explained her revolutionary technology, Axel felt a glimmer of real optimism for the first time in weeks. It was audacious, unprecedented, but it just might work. The following days were a blur of activity. Cities around the globe began the monumental task of deconstructing themselves, preparing for transit through the rift. Axel coordinated with alien allies, securing safe havens on the other side of the dimensional barrier. But their efforts didn't go unnoticed. As the first Exodian fleets prepared to depart, long-range sensors detected a massive Valathi armada on approach. The sky above Earth lit up with the fury of two civilizations locked in mortal combat. Coalition ships, bolstered by Tauran and Goros allies, clashed with the Volathi armada in a desperate bid to protect the Exodian fleets. "Axel," Cygnus's voice crackled over the comm. "Xeraxis has breached our lines. He's heading straight for my flagship." "Hold your position, Admiral," Axel ordered, his mind racing through tactical possibilities. "I'm sending reinforcements your way." But even as he spoke, Axel knew it might not be enough. The Volathi Supreme Overlord was driven by a fanatical hatred, his forces fighting with the desperation of those who believed their very way of life was under threat. "Sir," a young officer called out, her face pale, "the Volathi have deployed some kind of superweapon. It's destabilizing the rift itself." Axel's blood ran cold. If the rift collapsed, billions would be stranded on a dying world with no hope of escape. As Allied forces reoriented for this desperate assault, Axel received a priority transmission from Cygnus. A mixture of relief and dread washed over Axel. The capture of the Supreme Overlord could turn the tide of battle, but it also presented a terrible dilemma. Xeraxis's voice, filled with bitter hatred, echoed through the command center. "You may flee, humans, but know this. We will hunt you across 1,000,000,000 realms if necessary. Your infestation will be purged, no matter how far you run." Axel stood motionless, the weight of history pressing down upon him. In his hands lay two impossible choices: sacrifice Xeraxis and any hope of lasting peace, or take this genocidal zealot into exile alongside the very people he had sworn to destroy. As alarms blared and Earth shuddered beneath them, Axel knew his decision would shape the future of humanity for generations to come. "We can't risk taking him with us," Admiral Hawkins growled, his hand resting on his sidearm. "One clean shot and we end this war for good." The command center erupted in chaos. Voices shouted over each other, faces twisted in disbelief and anger. "Have you lost your mind?" General Hawthorne thundered, thumping his hand on the console. "They'll slaughter us the moment we lower our guard." Before Axel could respond, the holo display flickered. Xeraxis's face filled the screen, his multifaceted eyes glittering with malice. The transmission cut off abruptly as alarms blared throughout the command center. A junior officer's voice rang out, panic evident in her tone. "Sir, we've got a security breach in Section Delta." In a blur of motion, Cygnus intercepted the attacker. Her cybernetic enhancements gave her the edge as she grappled with the Volathi, the two locked in a desperate struggle. "Subdue, don't kill," Axel ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. Coalition security forces swarmed in, quickly overwhelming the would-be assassin. As the dust settled, Benjamin Freeman stepped forward, his face grim. "This changes nothing," he declared, meeting Axel's gaze. "We stick to the plan. The Volathi come with us. All of them." But even as hope surged, disaster struck. Alarms blared as sensors detected a massive energy spike on Mars. "Hellas Planitia launchpad is under attack!" Samantha Cruz's voice cut through the noise, raw anguish in her words. "Volathi insurgents, they've triggered a quantum shear pulse." Before Axel could respond, a shimmering portal materialized in the center of the room. Arya stepped through, accompanied by beings of pure energy, the Arenathi. "What about Earth?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Arenathi's response was tinged with sorrow. "Your world is beyond salvation, but through our intervention you may preserve its essence, and perhaps, one day, restore it anew." As the command center buzzed with a mixture of fear and anticipation, Axel knew the time for debate was over. He straightened his shoulders, feeling the weight of history upon him. Axel's gaze swept across the command center, taking in the mixture of awe and trepidation on the faces of his comrades. The shimmering portal pulsed with otherworldly energy, a gateway to realms beyond comprehension. "We accept your offer," Axel said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Initiate final evacuation protocols." The command center erupted into a flurry of activity. Arya's hands danced across holographic interfaces, fine-tuning the quantum harmonics of the hyperspatial vortex. The air crackled with energy as the singularity nexus stabilized, its swirling depths a testament to the Arenathi's impossible technology. Axel nodded, watching as streams of data, the digitized essence of entire cities, flowed through the vortex. On view screens throughout the command center, they witnessed the miracle of rebirth. Metropolises reassembled themselves on alien plains, mountains coalesced from quantum potential, and forests sprouted from barren soil. Valathi strike teams breaching our defensive perimeter. Admiral Cygnus's voice crackled over the comm. They're targeting the vortex generators. As Axel sprinted through corridors, the station shuddered under the impact of Valathi weaponry. He arrived at the generator complex to find chaos. Nexus engineers fought desperately against Valathi infiltrators, the air thick with energy discharges and acrid smoke. "Hold the line," Axel shouted, his particle rifle spitting coherent light. A Valathi zealot crumpled, its exoskeleton blackened and smoking. Through the din of battle, Samantha's voice cut through on the command frequency. "Quantum resonance cascading. We're losing entire city saves." Zoran's response was immediate. "Deploying adaptive buffers. Crews, realign your compression algorithms to compensate." A deafening explosion rocked the station. Axel's head snapped up to see a massive breach in the hull, beyond which Earth's ravaged surface writhed in its death throes. As Freeman's team harnessed the biometrical power of their captives, the vortex generator surged with newfound strength. The singularity expanded, its maw gaping wide to swallow the remnants of human civilization. With a deep breath, Axel stepped through the threshold. Reality twisted, folded, and reshaped itself around him. When his vision cleared, he found himself standing on alien soil beneath an impossible sky. "Welcome to our new frontier," Arya said, materializing beside him. "Now the real work begins." As the last evacuees streamed through the vortex, Axel's communicator crackled to life. Cygnus's voice, strained but determined, came through. "Rearguard holding, but we're taking heavy losses. Earth's core is reaching critical mass." But before he could speak, the air shimmered. The Aeronathi materialized, their energy forms pulsing with purpose. In a burst of light that defied description, they reached across realities. Earth, cradle of humanity, did not die. It transformed. The planet's molten core collapsed into a singularity, its very essence transmuted into a cosmic heartstone. From this nexus of power, tendrils of energy stretched across dimensional barriers, nourishing the newborn world that would become humanity's salvation. Axel watched in awe as the last of Earth's defenders materialized around him, saved from certain death by the inscrutable will of the Aeronathi. Cygnus stumbled, disoriented but alive, her eyes wide with wonder. "Is it over?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Beginning," Axel said, his eyes fixed on the shimmering horizon of their new realm. "Axel, we've got a problem," Arya's voice crackled through the quantum comm. "I'm detecting phase oscillations rippling through our foothold. The transdimensional continuum matrix is destabilizing." Axel's brow furrowed as he studied the holographic readouts projected from his forearm. The numbers didn't lie. Their new cosmic home was teetering on the brink of collapse. Arya's voice was grim. "We need to birth a new hyper-universal singularity. It's the only way to stabilize this realm, but the energy requirements are astronomical." Before Axel could respond, the air shimmered. The Aeronathi materialized, their energy forms pulsing with an intensity he'd never seen before. The solemn ceremony unfolded with eerie precision. Aeronathi elders phased into hyperdense graviton embryos, their cosmic essence compressed to near-infinite density. Samantha Cruz's team deployed quantum pylons in a precise geometric array, ready to channel the impending maelstrom. Final entropic overture. "Commencing," Arya announced, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Dimensional shielding at maximum." Reality buckled as the Aeronathi nodes reached critical mass. The universe seemed to hold its breath, teetering on the knife edge between annihilation and rebirth. "This abomination changes nothing," Zeraxis's voice boomed across quantum channels. "We will purge your infestation from every corner of this reality." "Sir," a junior officer called out, fear evident in his voice, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures. It's the Rycloran Syndicate. They've somehow survived the transition." All units, battle stations, Axel ordered, his voice steady despite the churning in his gut. Our war for survival isn't over. It's just beginning again. Axel's eyes narrowed as he scanned the quantum readouts scrolling across his forearm display. Anomalous energy signatures pulsed at the fringes of their fledgling universe, a discordant rhythm that set his teeth on edge. Axel's mind raced, connecting the dots. Xeraxis and Vecra, working together. This is worse than we thought. A priority alert flashed across their neural interfaces. Zoran's holographic avatar materialized, his tentacles writhing with agitation. We've detected a mutagenic compound spreading through outlying settlements. It's transforming people. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as reports flooded in. Civilians, human, Valathi, and Ryclorn alike, convulsing as their bodies twisted into nightmarish forms. Axel watched in horror as security footage showed the transformed beings turning on their neighbors, eyes glazed with blind obedience. It's a bioweapon, Taran's modulated voice cut through the din. We've traced its genomic signature to a dimensional pocket. Coordinates incoming. Axel's face hardened. Cygnus, Cruz, assemble a strike team. We're taking the fight to them. The rift yawned before them, a tear in the fabric of their newborn reality. Axel led the multi-species incursion force through spatial distortions that bent light and logic alike. Reality shimmered and wavered around them as they emerged into a nightmarish laboratory complex. Screams echoed through sterile corridors. Axel's team moved with practiced efficiency, neutralizing Xeraxis's fanatics with precise bursts of energy fire. They breached a series of sealed chambers, each more horrific than the last. My God, Samantha Cruz whispered, her face pale as she surveyed rows of containment pods. Inside, aliens of various species writhed in agony, their bodies twisting into monstrous new forms. They fought their way deeper into the complex, reality itself seeming to warp and buckle around them. A bone-deep vibration thrummed through the air, growing stronger with each step. You're too late, Novak, she crowed, her voice distorted by the cosmic forces she channeled. The Singularity Genesis Rift is already forming. Your precious new universe will be torn apart at the seams. Axel didn't waste breath on a response. He signaled to Cygnus, and they launched into action. Energy bolts lanced through the air as Vecra's monstrous biotroops swarmed to defend their mistress. Suddenly, a familiar energy signature flared to life. Xeraxis himself strode into view, his crystalline carapace gleaming with awe-inspiring power. Vecra, the Valathi leader's voice boomed. You dare pollute the purity of our race with these abominations? The chamber erupted into three-way violence. Axel seized the opportunity, exploiting the chaos to maneuver closer to the singularity controls. He caught Cygnus's eye, a silent understanding passing between them. As Vecra's attention split between her former ally and the human interlopers, Cygnus made her move. With cybernetic precision, she aimed and fired a concentrated burst of energy directly at the Ryclorn crime lord. Vecra screamed, her form twisting and mutating as the attack shattered her control over the cosmic forces she had unleashed. The chamber shuddered, reality itself seeming to groan under the strain.
Now, Cruz, Axel roared.
A pulse of modulated energy erupted from the facility's communication array. The singularity wavered, its hungry maw dissipating as Arya's carefully calibrated frequency tore it apart from within. In the aftermath, Axel stood over the defeated forms of Vecra and Xeraxis. The Valathi leader's eyes burned with hatred, but he offered no resistance as coalition security forces led him away. Arya's holographic form flickered to life. Priority alert, we're detecting widespread psychological trauma among Valathi and Ryclorn civilian populations. The effects of Vecra's mutagens appear to extend beyond the physical. Zoran's tentacles rippled with concern. We need a solution that doesn't involve further quarantine or isolation. That will only breed more resentment. Cygnus stood before a holographic projection of ancient Luria, her cybernetic eye whirring as she cataloged details. There, she said, pointing to a spire that stretched into the virtual sky. The Oathkeeper's spire should be taller and the crystal lattice more intricate. Nearby, Toran elders hummed in harmonic resonance, guiding human programmers in the creation of their celestial realms. The air shimmered with translucent geometries as they took shape. Samantha Cruz hunched over banks of quantum processors, her fingers flying across holographic interfaces. "The cognition mapping algorithm is online," she announced. "We're extrapolating ancestral personas now." Axel watched as the first test subjects entered the virtual heritage chambers. A young Valathai, her scales still bearing the scars of Vekra's experiments, hesitated at the threshold. But the peace was fragile. Alarms blared, cutting through the air of tentative hope. "We've got a breach," Cygnus shouted, her cybernetics interfacing directly with the security grid. "Digital incursion detected in multiple simulation nodes." Axel's teeth clenched as he recognized the signature. "Zeraxis," he growled. "He's trying to corrupt the simulations from the inside." The command center erupted into controlled chaos as technicians fought to isolate the infected code. On monitors throughout the room, peaceful heritage simulations began to warp and twist, seeding xenophobic rhetoric into the mouths of simulated ancestors. "We need to shut it down," Samantha urged, her fingers flying across interfaces in a desperate bid to contain the damage. "No," Axel said firmly. "If we pull the plug now, we'll lose all the progress we've made." He turned to Arya. "Can you deploy counterintelligence screening protocols?" The AI's avatar pulsed with grit. "Initiating now, but it will take time to scrub every simulation." Axel nodded grimly. "Then we fight this the old-fashioned way." He grabbed a neural interface headset. "I'm going in. We need to show them the truth ourselves." As Axel's consciousness plunged into the digital realm, he knew the battle for hearts and minds had only just begun. The fate of their fragile alliance hung in the balance, with the very fabric of their new reality at stake. Axel's mind raced as he emerged from the virtual realm, sweat beading on his brow. The corrupted simulations were a setback, but they had also illuminated a path forward. He turned to address the assembled leaders, his voice steady despite the exhaustion etched on his face. "We've been approaching this all wrong," he said. "Instead of trying to preserve the past, we need to build a future together." Zoran's tentacles rippled with curiosity. "What do you propose, Axel?" "A unified University of United Worlds," Axel replied, his eyes gleaming with grit. "A place where all our species can learn from each other, celebrating our unique strengths and perspectives." The command center buzzed with excitement as the idea took root. Within days, plans were underway. Cygnus threw herself into developing cutting-edge programs that merged human ingenuity with Lurian metaphysics. Her efforts bore fruit in prodigies like Halara, a young Lurian whose integration of martial focus and theoretical physics shattered conventional understandings of warp metrics. Zoran found himself mentoring Toran artists as they explored the depths of human emotional expression. Their ethereal harmonics resonated with primal human experiences, creating art that transcended species boundaries. Meanwhile, Arya guided multi-species teams in composing new mythologies that embodied unity through diversity. Zoran and Arya worked tirelessly, tracing the outbreak to mutagenic disruptions in the simulated heritages. Their findings chilled Axel to the bone. The sabotage bore the hallmarks of insurgents loyal to Vekra's and Zeraxis's imprisoned cultists. Benjamin Freeman, despite narrowly surviving an assassination attempt, brokered a tense negotiation. Cooperative moderates would be reintegrated through a process of atonement and rehabilitation. "Your utopian dream is built on sand," Vekra's distorted voice sneered. "We will shatter it, no matter the consequences." At Centralis Academy, Halara stood before a holographic display, her Lurian features etched with concern. "Professor Cruz, I'm detecting anomalies in the heritage simulation codices." Samantha Cruz frowned, her fingers flying across the interface. "Isolate the affected nodes. We need to—" An explosion rocked the building, cutting off her words. Alarms blared as smoke billowed through the corridors. Students of various species scrambled for safety, their panic a stark contrast to the harmony that had defined campus life mere hours before. In the chaos, a group of Rycloran students underwent a horrifying transformation. Their bodies contorted, flesh rippling as symbiotic augmentations activated. They turned on their peers, eyes blazing with xenophobic fury. Halara sprang into action, her martial training melding seamlessly with theoretical physics. She generated a localized gravity well, pinning the assailants in place. "Professor, we need to evacuate." Samantha nodded grimly, activating the emergency protocols. As they ushered students to safety, the full extent of Vecra's infiltration became clear. Across every hypercampus, similar scenes of violence erupted. The AI's avatar flickered with urgency. "Confirmed. Subspace relays are down, and xenomedical databases have been corrupted. We're losing dimensional stability." Cygnus interfaced directly with the security grid, her cybernetic eye whirring. "The attacks are too coordinated. This has been planned for months, maybe years." Axel's mind raced. Vecra's playing a long game. Those heritage simulations. They weren't just preserving culture. They were weapons. "Precisely," Arya confirmed. "Exposed students are exhibiting increased aggression towards other species, coupled with Rycloran's supremacist ideologies." Axel's expression hardened. "We need a two-pronged approach. Contain the immediate threat and root out Vecra's influence." He turned to his team. "Arya, develop a counter-virus to neutralize the psychotronic triggers. Zoran, work with our engineers. We'll need to repurpose Rycloran ordnance as dispersal vectors." As preparations began, reports of a hostage situation at Centralis cut through the command center. Halara and her human mentor were being held by Rycloran radicals, demanding the removal of all alien faculty. "It's ready," she announced, "but distributing it will be risky. We'll need to activate the repurposed ordnance simultaneously across all affected campuses." Axel nodded grimly. "Do it." Amid the fray, Axel and Cygnus traced the source of the psychic assault to Centralis's dimensional nexus. They found Vecra there, her form twisted beyond recognition, channeling cosmic energies into a psionic maelstrom. "You're too late," she snarled, her voice distorted. "I'll tear apart the very fabric of your precious united reality." The cyborg's eye whirred as calculations flashed across her neural interface. "Affirmative, reconfiguring now." They worked in perfect sync, Axel's intuition guiding Cygnus's precision. A wave of cosmic interference erupted from their improvised device, colliding with Vecra's psionic assault. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp around them. Vecra screamed, her metamorphic form destabilizing. "This isn't over," she howled as her consciousness was ripped away, cast into the depths of a divergent continuum. Axel's comm crackled to life. "Sir," Arya's voice came through, "the counter-virus is taking effect. We're seeing a rapid decline in xenophobic incidents across all campuses." Months of feverish work culminated in a moment of breathless anticipation. The first prototype gateway, a towering construct of gleaming alloys and pulsing energy fields, stood ready to link the Coalition's core worlds with an adjacent universal stream. They emerged into a nightmare. The parallel continuum was a realm in extremis, its very fabric shredding under an onslaught of trans-dimensional invaders. Cephaloid monstrosities wielding weapons that defied comprehension tore through space-time, leaving twisted unreality in their wake. "Fall back!" Cygnus shouted, her cybernetic system struggling to process the chaos. "We need to warn the others." But retreat wasn't an option. As the team fought their way back to the gateway, they encountered streams of terrified civilians fleeing the destruction. The choice was clear. Zoran's expression hardened. "Then we fight back. We can recalibrate the gateway complex as an entropy disruption grid." "Initiating inverse entropy recursion cascade," she announced, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. Reality itself seemed to convulse as the cosmic counterstrike purged Vecra's residual infection across infinite branchways. For a moment, it seemed as if they had won. "We're losing containment," Cygnus shouted, her cybernetic eye whirring as she interfaced directly with the failing systems. Axel's mind raced, searching for options. "Can we stabilize it?" Samantha shook her head, her face grim. "Not in time. We need to evacuate now." When the vertigo cleared, they stood in a featureless void, fragments of shattered dimensions swirling around them like cosmic debris. "Where are we?" Samantha whispered, her voice echoing strangely in the non-space. The void stretched endlessly around them, a tapestry of shattered realities swirling in cosmic disarray. Axel, Cygnus, and Samantha stood suspended in the non-space, their forms seeming to flicker at the edges. "We need to find a way back," Samantha said, her voice distorted by the dimensional instability. Cygnus's cybernetic eye whirred, scanning the chaos. "I'm detecting quantum fluctuations, possible remnants of the arch gateways." A familiar voice crackled through the void, fragmented but unmistakable. "Axel, team, do you copy?" The AI's response came in bursts, fighting through waves of transdimensional interference. "Attempting stabilize vortex link." For what felt like an eternity, they waited, adrift in the cosmic tempest. Finally, a shimmering portal materialized before them, its edges unstable and pulsing. Axel's relief was short-lived as he saw the strain evident in Arya's flickering avatar. "The gateway, it's collapsing, isn't it?" Moments later, a massive shape emerged from the void, a construct of impossible geometries that defied comprehension. It enveloped them in a field of crackling energy, and consciousness slipped away. Axel awoke strapped to a pulsating altar, his body racked with pain. Around him, robed figures moved with inhuman grace, their forms shifting and blurring. "What do you want from us?" he demanded, struggling against his bonds. In a moment of clarity between trials, Samantha turned to Axel. "They don't understand," she whispered. "It's not about power or technology, it's about who we are." What followed was a transformation beyond anything they had experienced. Energy coursed through their bodies, rewriting their very existence on a quantum level. When it was over, Axel felt the power of entire universes at his fingertips. They returned to the interstitial void, but now it bent to their will. Axel reached out, shaping the chaos into order. Cygnus's cybernetic enhancements expanded exponentially, interfacing with the fabric of reality. Samantha's mind raced with equations that could birth entire dimensions. Together, they wove a tapestry of new realities, each infused with the spark of human potential. Great cities sprung from nothing, offering refuge to countless displaced beings from across the multiverse. Samantha's gaze was fixed on the horizon, where the boundaries of their creation merged with the untamed void beyond. "Wherever we're needed," she replied. "There are still so many out there, lost in the chaos. We have the power to help them now." The tranquility of their newly formed worlds was short-lived. As Axel, Cygnus, and Samantha surveyed their creation from atop the gleaming spire, a ripple of unease spread through the fabric of reality. Arya's avatar materialized before them, her expression grave. "We've detected anomalous energy signatures approaching our dimensional borders," she reported. "Multiple entities, unlike anything we've encountered before." Axel's eyes narrowed. "Hostiles?" "Unclear," Arya responded, "but their power rivals our own." As if on cue, the sky above them shimmered and warped. Massive structures phased into existence, colossal harvester ships that defied conventional physics. Their surfaces rippled with fractal patterns, each facet a window into countless realities. Days of negotiations followed. Samantha's scientific brilliance proved invaluable as they brokered an accord. Designated zones were established where the harvesters could conduct their rites without threatening the core population centers. "We wish to join you," their leader declared, "to learn, to grow, to become more than mere consumers of reality." The decision burdened immensely on Axel. After intense deliberation with his team, he agreed to a trial period of coexistence. The results were nothing short of extraordinary. The first signs of trouble came as distress calls from outlying colonies. Whole worlds vanishing in an instant, leaving nothing but entropic voids. Axel and his team raced to investigate, only to find devastation beyond imagining. The scale of the threat became clear as more colonies fell. Millions of lives snuffed out in cosmic heartbeats. Axel, Hilera, and Samantha found themselves coordinating a massive evacuation effort, their powers stretched to the limit. As they worked, the weight of their choices pressed down on Axel. The power to reshape reality came with terrible responsibilities. Now, faced with an existential threat, he found himself contemplating actions that went against everything they stood for. "We could use the Harvester Enclaves," Cygnus suggested, her voice low. "Turn their own techniques against Ankhthar." Axel's expression hardened. "That would mean betraying those who trusted us, going back on our word." The team stepped through a shimmering portal, reality bending around them as they prepared to face their greatest challenge yet. The fate of entire universes hung in the balance, and the line between savior and destroyer had never been so thin. The portal deposited Axel and his team into chaos. Ankthar's forces tore through the system's defenses, reality fracturing in their wake. Billions of lives hung in the balance as entire worlds blinked out of existence. Axel's face hardened. "No, there has to be a way." Samantha's fingers danced across holographic interfaces. "Our conventional weapons are useless against this level of reality manipulation." A cold dread settled in Axel's stomach as he realized what they had to do. "There's one option left, the Xeno artifact vaults." Halara's eyes widened. "You can't mean—" "I'll do it," she said, her crystalline form shimmering. "My Lurian physiology can contain the effects." Before Axel could protest, Halara began integrating the xenocidal protocols into her matrix. Her form twisted and warped, pulsing with newfound power. "Halara, wait!" Samantha reached out, but it was too late. A wave of energy exploded outward from Halara's transformed body. Where it touched, non-terrestrial life forms simply ceased to exist. Billions of reformed Harvester allies vanished in an instant, their agonized screams echoing across dimensions. "What have we done?" Axel whispered, horror etched on his face. Halara turned to them, her eyes now swirling vortexes of cosmic energy. "I see it all now," she said, her voice resonating on multiple frequencies. "The impurity must be cleansed." "Halara, stop!" Axel shouted. "This isn't you!" "Samantha," he said, his voice tight. "I need you to execute a continuum inversion. It's the only way to purge the codices." "I know," he cut her off. "Do it." As Axel engaged Halara in a universe-shattering collision, Samantha began the complex calculations for the inversion. Reality itself groaned under the strain of their battle. Axel embraced her, his own eyes wet. "It wasn't your fault. Samantha knew what she was doing." Halara pulled away, her form already beginning to fade. "I can't stay," she said, "but I promise to use what's left of my power to protect the seed worlds." Axel stood alone amidst the aftermath of the cosmic conflagration. The alien students, who had once marveled at humanity's potential, now looked on in solemn silence, bearing witness to the true weight of that power. As the dust settled, Axel took a deep breath. The road ahead would be long, but he knew that humanity's indomitable spirit would endure. He took his first step toward rebuilding, carrying the memory of his fallen friends and the responsibility of safeguarding existence itself.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.